everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we are going to be talking about Bhakti Yoga, and we have Ekabhumi Ellik here talking about his coloring book, the Bhakti coloring book. Please hold it up. All right, so Ekabhumi is coming to Seattle on August 3rd and August 4th. and he has a brand new haircut. Ta-da! So he's coming August 3rd and 4th. August 3rd, he's going to be talking about Bhakti. And then August 4th, he's having a workshop on his coloring book. And then you're going to be doing some kirtan, on both nights. So welcome.
It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here.
So first, tell me a little bit about Bhakti Yoga. What is it? Tell us a little bit about how you got involved. I saw your intro, and I think you may be the only options broker that I've ever met that is now a poet, artist, and a teacher of Classical Tantric Hatha Yoga. So first of all, how did that come about?
How did it? Wow. I fell in love with a crazy woman and moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. She broke my heart and stole my money, and I needed a job in a hurry. And back then there was a full stock exchange and an options exchange in San Francisco. They since have been bought out by Chicago, and then it got bought out. It all got consolidated. But at the time we had a very thriving exchange in San Francisco, and they're always hiring. And that's something to be wary of. Like if you hear about a business that's always hiring, yeah, it was a very stressful job. Didn't pay great. I mean, it paid okay, but I needed a job in a hurry. I had some bills all of a sudden, and I thought that it was going to be great. I'd get up at 4 a.m. The clock rang at 6. We'd be out by 1. I figured that would give me lots of time to be an artist, and I just didn't realize how exhausting and demanding the job would be. I was trying to go out and perform as a poet. I was a professional poet and a producer of poetry events for many years, and I went for a couple of years where I was getting like 4 to 6 hours of sleep at the most, 4 hours of sleep a night. Yeah. And it burned me out pretty fast. Wow. But numbers and math, in my opinion, the way my brain works is like lifting weights. So you have to be able to do fractions very quickly. You have to know what a quarter minus a teeny equals. Right. And that would be 3 teenies, right? A quarter is 4 teenies.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. In any case, 16ths, right? And so learning fractions, learning to do fractions quickly, learning to do math, a half minus a teeny, what does that equal? That kind of thing is like lifting weights. You just get better at it by practicing it. So I threw myself into it, got good at it fast. I was eventually training the new recruits. Stayed there for 3 years. I worked my way from being a runner to being an options broker, all the while being a poet and a performer and touring and teaching in schools during the day and at night. And I finally, when I was promoted to being an options broker, and I was offered a badge, I passed my test, and I got in a fight with my boss because I wanted to make some money on the side, like all the other brokers did, but that was it was like a understanding that arises once you have been there a while. You learn how to work the system. Right. And I was foolish enough to think that I should just be honest and go forward and say, I want to do this. And of course, it's against policy. And so we got in a fight about it because they didn't give me a contract. And I said, I'm not going to train without a contract that pays me well because the job's so stressful, especially if I can't do any work on the side. And I was pissed. She insulted me. She was angry. She was incensed. She really didn't like the broker that I had apprenticed with. And I felt personally attacked. So when I found out that the team of poets I was coaching was accepted to the National Poetry Slam and they were supremely talented, I just went back and I quit my job. And then our team went on, it's the first time San Francisco had ever won the National Poetry Slam. It was the 10-year anniversary. 60 Minutes was filming. Awesome. I got my picture in the front page of the New York Times of the calendar or arts section, right?
Yes.
Of all of us ripping the trophy apart because there ended up being a tie between San Francisco and San Jose, who I also helped to sort of groom and get to the Nationals. It was their first year. And so both teams had a bunch of brand new young poets in this established competition, and nobody thought we could do it. And it was this huge success story. And like a week later, after quitting my job, I got a big envelope from the bank I was working for, ABN AMRO, and I was like, why are they sending this to me? I opened it up, and there's only two papers you're allowed to read on the stock exchange floor. One is the Wall Street Journal, and the other was the New York Times, at least in those days.
Yeah.
And so all the guys had seen my picture in the Times, and they'd passed it around the floor, and she cut it out, put it in the envelope, and all it said is that she had a little note on there that said, "It looks like you made the right choice."
Oh, that's nice.
It was very nice.
Wow.
And so I went on to run poetry events for a long time. I ran poetry readings for over 20 years, but I went on full time after that. And the reason why I came into yoga was because I was trying to coach poets to relax, to be centered before they performed in these very intense competitions. Yeah. And I also noticed that many poets have these sort of self-defeating kind of stories that they believe, that they would get a certain level of success, and then it was like they didn't know who they were anymore. Their identity wouldn't allow them to become champions.
Wait. Tell me how that works. So that they were champions, but then inside they didn't feel like champions, and so they didn't come across in their reading.
Well, what would happen is they would make I had coached one guy, and he was kind of an anti-hero, a barroom sage kind of guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so he would rock out in the preliminary competitions that were in smaller venues, and he was great. My competition was held in a bar. But as soon as I got him up in front of an audience of 3,000 people, he started doing wonky stuff, and it was illogical. I had a whole set of cues, and I'd give him cues for time or which poem to choose, and he would ignore me. It's like, well, I was feeling this other one. And he would totally self-sabotage himself. And he would create a whole story about, I was feeling it, or I knew this one person in the audience needed to hear what I had to say that one night. Yeah. And I was like, well, what about the other 3,000 people, and what about the tens of thousands of people that you would have seen when you went on tour afterwards? Right. Like, what about them? Right. And the logic was just kind of screwed up. And I'm saying I'm talking about in general the poets that I coached who had built a identity stereotype, a stage persona, that then they felt like they needed to obey.
Oh, I see. They were acting. So they were acting in a certain face, in a certain archetype, so to speak. And then when they had to actually take that archetype in the grander scale, they hadn't actually practiced what their archetype was, so they couldn't flow with it. Oh!
Yes.
Wow. Yes. Okay.
And so what happened is that their identity structure around being a local hero and a misbegotten punk rock, a street urchin or whatever, all of a sudden when there's thousands of dollars going around, and CBS and 60 Minutes, and there's all these cameras, and you're in front of a huge theater with 3,000 people on their feet cheering, their identity structure couldn't support that anymore.
Fascinating. Wow.
So I wanted to find a somatic method for helping people to relax and to untangle and unwind and deconstruct this very useful stage persona that they had created to become a small-time success, but was now limiting them from becoming a big-time success.
Wow.
And so I went into a yoga class, which I thought was some crazy hippie thing. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I thought it was brilliant.
Like, now I'll devote my whole life to it. Okay.
I went up to the teacher and I wanted to understand how it worked. I mean, I was a shameless appropriator. I wanted to use the methods because I felt very self-righteous about it. I was working with marginalized voices. I was working with the most minority of the minorities of minorities, putting them on stage. And I felt like part of my job was to give them tools to articulate in a powerful and forceful way for their identity group or for their cause or for their political goals, and to have them not only be heard, but have people rally to them, have people
Mm,
excited about what they were saying.
right.
So I felt very self-righteous about my goal and my cause because I was using my privilege to center marginalized voices.
Okay, so how'd you do it? How did yoga help? Okay, so I'm the punk person.
Right.
So how did you help? How would you help me? And I'm nervous because I have my own persona, and it's and then I'll have to get into a big group. How did you help me? How did you help someone under that scenario using your yoga?
I didn't. What happened was that I found this yoga thing and I was like, okay, I'm just going to master this thing, take what's useful, and then go back and turbocharge my community. And it's been almost 20 years and I'm still working on that mastery part.
Okay, that's the best story ever. So that was but you know what I think is so grand about life is that that was the thing that led you there, right? Just like like when you were outraged when your boss didn't, meet you in the way that you wanted to, and in fact, she was maybe your soul partner, right? To say like, no, I'm not going to, and then you're like, okay, boom, I'm going to win a poetry slam, So maybe. It's odd. And so you went with this certain intention, and then it actually resulted in a deep dive into yoga. And that was how
Yes.
long ago?
Well, I made a choice. See, the first yoga class, I went up to the teacher afterwards because I like operational logic. I'm into
Okay.
game theory.
Oh.
And so I noticed that I felt different at the end of class. And I was like, why do I feel different? I'd taken Tai Chi, I'd done some Qigong, I had taken modern dance. I had some somatic knowledge. I had been a surfer and I'd done competitive sports, right? And so I was like, why do I feel so different? What is it about this that's working? And so I went up to the instructor of the class and I said, why do we start every yoga posture with our right foot? Why
Interesting.
why do we initiate every posture with the right side of the body?
Interesting. What did he or she say?
She said, I don't know, that's why Bikram does it, works for me.
But you wanted to be intentional and know, like, there is probably a specific. Okay, so why do we put our right foot each time? Tell me.
That started me on a 3-year journey as I traveled across the country touring as a poet to find somebody who could answer that question in a way that made sense rather than saying, oh, that's the way the gurus have always done it. Oh, it's because it's more auspicious. These are non-answers for me
Right.
because I was there to get the operational logic.
Right.
And so my fantastic luck was that I found a teacher about 5 blocks from my house that way who
So you traveled across the country to get this answer, and if you had just gone a couple blocks, but
well,
but there
I
again,
was being
life,
systematic. I
yeah,
was going around to different yoga studios in the Bay Area, and I just hadn't gotten to that one yet because there's so many in Berkeley,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I'd go to each studio and I'd say, who's the best teacher here? And of course they'd say, they're all great, or this, that. And I would get more specific. I'd say,
right.
who's been practicing the longest, or who's the most knowledgeable? And so I found out about this one teacher, but he only taught one morning a week, and it was the morning when I normally worked. And the place was kind of culty anyway. It
Yeah.
felt a little weird, and I was just like, well, screw this guy. He only teaches one public class. But I finally got around to taking the class, and I didn't really like the guy, but I went up and asked him the question, and he said, oh, well, that's because everybody in the 60s who went and trained in India only studied for 4 years. They studied for a few years, they got what they thought they wanted, and they thought that they were teachers now, and so they came back to share what they had with the world because they found something that worked for them. You see, they only got part of the practice.
Mm.
Because when you first come into yoga asana practice, everybody wants you to burn off all of your impurities. They want you to burn off your negative karmas.
Right.
And so they give you sun salutations,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Everybody in the West is doing sun salutations.
We get a lot of negative karma to burn off.
It's true. No, there's no doubt it's true.
There's logic.
What happens? What happens if you fire your body up and you never cool it down?
Yeah.
You're going to start getting diseases associated with fire, like cancer and rashes, injuries physical sudden calamitous injuries, dislocating your hip from overexertion, getting very horny and sleeping with all of your students, getting mad charisma and saying, we're going to save the world. These are all derangements of the fire element.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, so you found that there's kind of a missing aspect to yoga. So once you found that out, you went, oh, okay, so you put it on.
I was like, but still, how does that relate? It goes, the right side of your body is the solar side, Pingala Nadi. The left side of your body is the lunar side, Ida Nadi. So you do sun salutations initiating with the right side, and you do moon salutations initiating with the left side.
Ah, interesting.
So when you do yoga,
I said interesting. I've been doing yoga for a ton, like maybe, I don't know, 16 years. Did not know.
So if you do your asana at night after the sun sets, initiate with the left side.
Oh, and are certain poses, like you said, warrior poses are kind of yang poses, and then there's certain poses, like I assume, like child's pose is like a yin pose, and so that does that probably also influence whether you have a right or left, or is it really just a time of the day?
It's a complicated question. Any posture could be done as a yang posture. Any posture could be done as a yin posture, depending on the bhava, the attitude you bring into it. That's why some postures are named after warriors, is to shift your bhav. So it's not enough to have physical alignment and not enough to have alignment with your breath, not even enough to have alignment with your teacher. You also have to have alignment with your motive and with your disposition. So each posture has a bhava as well. So some postures are bhava or virabhava, and that's like a hero posture, like virasana, hero's posture, right? Or virabhadrasana, warrior's posture, right? So you cultivate a warrior attitude when you're doing the posture. You shouldn't go into it like, it's not a gentle posture. It should be very forceful, like you're about to like slice somebody's head off. That's the disposition you're supposed to have in the posture.
That's fascinating. Because I've been in classes where they're like, warrior one, imagine you're a warrior of love. And it's like, well, maybe not so much is what I'm hearing you say. That's not the intention of that.
Some people say when they look at pictures of Kali or Durga, because remember, I'm an artist. I do pictures of deities. And they say, oh, she's so full of love. Why do you make her look so violent? Or they're getting it, those people in India, they're getting it wrong. This super presumptuous, arrogant attitude, that the goddess is only love. Why do they make it look like it's a battle? And if you've ever battled with addiction, you know that shit feels like a war sometimes. The understanding is that we are addicted to our ego. We're addicted to our identity. We're addicted to our story. We're addicted to our attachments, whatever they may be, whether that's an actual addiction to a substance or a food or a lifestyle or our lover, right? And so becoming free, like literally spiritually becoming free, for some people, especially at first, is going to feel like a war. And so those icons of fearless goddesses riding a tiger into battle is an excellent icon to meditate on.
Can you show us a picture from your book so we can see? And so this is a picture, just so I understand, from this Bhakti coloring book that you created.
Well, this one's from the Shakti coloring book. So you can see she's surrounded by flames.
Okay.
Right? In a more gentle deity, it would be like scroll work, so it would look more passive. Those are called peaceful flames, like a gold ornaments or like.
Oh, so it would be like the little curls. Can you show me the picture of the Shakti, the one that's kind of the one that you just held up, so I can take a closer look? So this is from your Shakti coloring book.
Yes. So this is the cover image. This is hand colored by me, and this is Bhuvaneshwari, the goddess of the earth. She's semi-wrathful, so you see the peaceful flames, and you actually see flames around the outside.
Yes. Okay, got it. Oh, okay, got it. So that's a combination.
It's a combination.
Okay, got it. So, the one that Kali is a picture that you said is kind of this fierce, because you have to be fierce if you're going to be fighting your ego, your addictions, your attachments, and so you're saying the bhava, is that what you called it? What's bhava? Interesting.
It's Bhava, bhava, which means like disposition or attitude. So you can see she's holding a severed head, which is the ego, and she's got a big old sword with blood on it.
Right. Okay.
But she's also holding these gestures over here, gestures saying, don't be afraid, and I'm going to give you lots of boons. I'm going to grant your wishes.
Okay.
So It's a mix. These are like the images of deities are like labels on medicine. And so if you're taking like a Chinese tea, there might be several different herbs in there, and they balance and harmonize and augment one another.
Mm-hmm.
So a deity that's holding one hand up saying, don't be afraid, and another hand down saying, I will grant your boons, that's saying both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid, and if you're not afraid, you will get the blessings. And then they might be holding a sword and a shield. So they're always in complementary pairs. So the sword would be the opposite of the shield. The sword is saying, I am giving you the ability to discern between real and unreal. And the shield is the Dharma. It's righteousness. It's knowing what to do and that it protects you.
Okay, so when
if
people...
you have a shield with no discernment, it doesn't work so well. And if you have discernment with no shield, it doesn't work so well. So when people learn yoga and they get an incomplete training, it's like they get the sword without the shield. They get the magical powers without the actual defensive capabilities. They get the solar ability to burn things without the lunar quality to nourish things.
Right.
So we're all decrying all these corrupt yoga teachers in the West, right? But they didn't get the training on how to nourish people. They didn't get the training on how to be still, how to be quiet.
Okay, so hold the picture up again. So if I point out these things, so an uneducated eye would look at the at that picture. Is there kind of a dualistic quality to this kind of the shield and the sword in this picture too, as well?
Yes, in this case, she's holding a noose and a goad. So in this picture, they're both on one side.
Okay.
So the elephant goad, which is a sharp hook that you use to guide an elephant. An elephant's a really big animal. So the goad can be interpreted, depending on the teacher, to represent power over others, like the power to direct. And the noose, which is a rope, ties you in. So that's like control. So another way to interpret it is that if this is a sharp thing and it hurts, that's how you get the elephant to move. So that represents aversion, and the noose represents attraction. So in all yogic lineages, they talk about having mastery over attraction and aversion, right? So that you're not a victim of, you're not in a reactive state all the time.
Okay.
I like to think of it as total self-control and the ability to direct others.
Okay. Okay, cool, interesting. So I'm in your class now on August 3rd, coloring. I'm using your book. I'm coloring this, and how does so I assume if I'm following you correctly, there's an intention when I'm coloring, I assume, as well, and a bhava that it goes along when I'm coloring, and then when I'm coloring, what's happening, and how does the coloring how is that yoga? What's happening?
So what's happening and why is that a yoga? There's not everybody that would agree that sacred art is a yoga.
Okay.
The truth is, if we look at the examples of the great Mahasiddhas, especially in the tantric traditions, you can turn any activity, any repetitive activity into a spiritual practice. Sweeping the floor. There was a guy who became enlightened from sweeping floors. And all of a sudden he was sweeping his karmas. And then he was sweeping the universe. So the key thing is to ritualize the activity. So coloring alone, we know that coloring is physically relaxing. We know that. Science has shown it. That's why they give it to people who are in recovery programs and people who are insane or have nervous issues. It's profoundly relaxing. We have lots of data on it. But it's not going to get you enlightened until you start using it in a ritual manner. You have to use the colors symbolically. So you're not just using a pencil and paper. It needs to be the blank page of the universe. And then you're invoking the power of generosity. And you're invoking the power of generosity in the form of Lakshmi. And then you're saying, I want this generosity to have a certain kind of nourishing, flowing quality. And so you color in the water and you think nourishment, nourishment, nourishment. And you're saying like, I'm being nourishment. I'm feeling nourishment. I am now expressing nourishment in physical form. I'm giving birth to the form of the goddess as a embodied expression of nourishment, right?
Okay, got it. So when I'm doing that, I mean, there's this idea in some practices that we're individuated points of consciousness. We are one with Shiva, let's say. And so as a result, we can actually create and manifest through our actions. So this is a way for us to take our action and create something and manifest it in the physical reality, which is this coloring of a picture of some sort. Am I following you right? So when I'm coloring, I'm creating something from in me and externalizing it and making it an image. You have the image, I'm taking the color. And so let's say in Lakshmi, I'm like, well, I know like blue is the color of water, but what's coming through me is like the color of red, because I don't know. Maybe that's I'm feeling right now generally. So maybe I'll say like the color of red. So for me, I would color in red, right? So the colors that I choose, are they right or wrong? Do they have to fit consensus reality? Like water is blue?
Well, this can be a very complicated question, but I'm going to give you a very simple anecdote that I've come up with for people.
Okay.
Right? Because people say, well, I feel like coloring her purple. And I was like, well, in esoteric symbology, that's the goddess of bad luck. You don't want to color her purple. Well, I like purple. It's my good luck color. So here's the anecdote I like to use. If you went down to the pharmacy right now and you wanted to cure a disease that you have, say the disease of feeling like you are unlovable, or that you never have enough, or that nobody cares about you, right? These feelings of not getting enough and you need nourishment. And you're like, man, this is really bad. I need some hardcore drugs.
Right.
So you go down to the pharmacy, right? And you talk to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist says, oh, get the red pills. Those are the nourishment pills. Or actually the pink ones would be even better if you get the pink pills. And then you go out onto the floor and you look at all the pills and you're like, I just like purple.
Right.
And you just grab the purple pill and you pop it in. You don't know what it does. You don't know what it belongs to. You don't know the symptoms or the side effects. You don't know how many to take. You're just like, I like purple, so I'm just going to take some.
Okay. So there's actually even an intentionality with the colors and the color choices when I'm coloring. So the water should be blue, not red. Because water is blue, or like it's so in those. So when I go to your coloring class, am I like going to pick up the red pen? You're like, like what's going to happen?
Well, luckily in this class, we're doing a very simple geometric figure, so there's a lot less story associated with it. It's just got 5 symbols on it, and each one is one color.
Okay.
And it very much correlates with the 5 elements, and those elements are always that color. So it's just really simple. We don't need to have much interpretation.
Okay.
Now, when I'm teaching a coloring class and people are coloring a goddess, especially when they're a beginner, I don't like to do the thing. I found that doesn't really work very well.
Right.
Because most people, when they come into it, they're trying to relax. And if you get too strict too quick, it's like if you're a yoga teacher and you're like, do 100 push-ups, and they're like, I'm tired, or my elbow hurts. And you're like, do 100. They're not going to come back.
Right. Right.
So one of my teachers said, an enlightened deity, not all deities, but an enlightened deity will accept any offering you give if it is made from your heart with no expectation in anything in return. That's key. So hear me really closely on this one, because I don't want your listeners to misunderstand. They will accept any heartfelt offering if there's no expectation of anything in return. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you're asking for happiness or health or good luck, you're asking for something in return. Big consequences. But if you're just saying, here's a delightful offering, I just like you so much, Ganesha, just come and hang out with me because I love you. There's no offering more precious than your time and loving attention. And what are you doing when you're coloring? You're giving lots of time and loving attention. It's a precious offering. So as long as you're doing that just out of love and to relax and to hang out, there's really very little consequences. But as soon as you start deluding yourself and thinking, I'm a sorcerer, and I'm going to invoke great power, I'm going to invoke abundance because I want a new Lexus, I want a new Prius, right? I want a Tesla. And so I'm going to invoke the goddess of abundance. And I would give
I'm just going to take a picture of Elon Musk.
Common human wisdom. Yeah. So if somebody called you up and said, hey, let's hang out, or I just made some cookies. Do you like cookies? You might not even like cookies, but you're like, oh, I don't really like cookies, but I'll hang out.
Yeah, okay, got it.
If somebody came up and said, hey, I made some cookies and I want a Lexus, Here's 10 cookies. Give me Alexis. Like, how would you feel about that? Especially if you didn't like cookies. You'd be like, what? And do I even know you?
Okay, I get it. I get it. So it's basically you're going, so if I'm in there like, I'm here to pick up babes in this coloring class, and I'm just fake coloring without any intention of anything, with lust in my heart, coloring on Friday, like, you're not going to get in, and you're like, I'm not getting anything, this guy. I'm not feeling calm, whatever. I'm just here to meet the girls. I'm coloring in Lakshi purple or whatever, blue, that you're not going to have anything in when you come out of the class. But if you go in with pure devotion and love, you're coloring, and the pencil. I don't even know. Do you color with pencils, markers? What are you even coloring with?
You can use anything, although I usually recommend colored pencils.
Okay, so if I come in with a color pencil and it's like, this is a manifestation, this purple is a manifestation of my love, and I'm coloring, and all my heart and soul is going into love of this deity or element, let's say, then something may or may not happen, no guarantees. Minimally, you opened up your heart and you devoted it to something.
So it's like the difference between lighting a candle and building a nuclear furnace.
Right.
You know, there's a different amount of energy.
Right.
Right? A candle can heat and light one room. A nuclear power plant can light an entire city. You don't need a lot of precision, and you don't need a lot of protection working with a candle. So if you're just doing a little ceremony to just get a little enlightenment,
right,
to warm yourself a little bit, you just want that, very little consequences, and you're not asking for much.
Right.
But if you're really going for a bigger ceremony, a bigger ritual, you're asking for more power, greater precision is necessary. You need more protection.
Right.
You could even say a candle between a candle and a bonfire.
Okay, got it. So this,
now you need to put a ring of rocks around it.
So I think I think you may be the second Bhakti yoga person I've interviewed, and maybe I'm a little bit dense, but I think I get it. So it's about devotion, and it's about devotion to goddesses or gods. Is that right? So they're the Hindu gods and goddesses. Is that the devotion that you're giving? And so it's about rituals and practices to show your devotion.
You can have bhakti for a teacher, for a guru. Bhakti is devotional love. So it's generally directed towards a deity, as I explained in the book, because a deity is a sort of a paragon of virtue, right? They're easy to admire, and they represent the best qualities of the virtue they embody.
Okay.
Where you can't really have bhakti. It's improper to use the word bhakti for, say, if you're in love with a movie star.
Yeah. No bhakti for Brad Pitt. Like, this is not appropriate.
Well, it's the wrong word. You could have love or admiration or lust for Brad Pitt, but bhakti implies a kind of a divine surrender.
Oh, divine surrender. Okay.
It's a selfless love. Bhakti is not grabby. It's not I'm going to give you a little bit of love and you're going to take me out to dinner.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not the romantic love.
Give me some love.
Right. It's not a romantic love, and it's not one in which there's expectations either way. It's just, I'm devoting my love.
Although there can be great romance to it, but the romance arises from the bhakti. The bhakti comes first. The bhakti is a profound connection that is beyond the identity of body. So when I say you can have bhakti to a human guru, you would also potentially fall in love with that person, but it's really not about that fleshy body in front of you. Bhakti is much too big for just a body and a name. It's a much more profound thing that guru is an emblem, a living, fleshy, human example of divine wisdom coming into our world of diversity where I can perceive it, and therefore it's precious. And I get to see how an enlightened person makes a mistake, and I can learn from that, because that's a human person. And so the guru is very precious. But as soon as you start thinking, oh, that's a person, and you start thinking, oh, he yelled at me today, therefore God hates me, then you're getting too materialistic. That's too sticky.
Well, that's interesting.
Bhakti is big, and it's subtle, and it's profound, right? When we're talking about affection or romantic love in the conventional sense is too small for bhakti.
Okay, so let's take that Wild Wild West movie with Osho, right? People were very devoted, very devoted to Osho, right? I think. And then
Oh, they were.
and then when he fell, it was like, he did this and he did that and she did this and she did that. The whole movie was just like worse than any sick, drama that I could ever see. So where would bhakti fit into that? So they had in this conversation, I'm trying to track this real thing that happened. But so
Yes.
help me understand it, knit
So
together.
I have strong opinions about this.
Okay.
First off, we need to understand that Osho was not in a lineage. He was not an initiate. He said he did not believe in any deities. He said he was not a guru.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so he
he's not a conventional guru.
Yeah, he had all these disclaimers, like if you want
He
to
had a lot
follow
of
me, give me
disclaimers.
Rolls Royces. It's like whatever, man. I
Well,
didn't tell you as
he
your teacher.
considered himself to be an iconoclast and a rebel,
Yeah.
right? But we need to understand we can't hold Osho up as an example of the quintessential Hindu guru. He himself said he was not trying to be the quintessential guru. He was not validated or recognized by any traditional gurus. He's not a traditional Indian guru
I see.
at all.
Okay.
He made up all of his shit. These are not traditional practices.
Right.
He just straight made up that stuff.
Right.
So I just want to put that out there first.
Okay.
Now that said, because I think he is a total fraud, a jackass.
Okay.
But
But tell me how you really feel. Okay.
No, hang with me. He
Okay.
had some power.
Right.
There's no question. And
You mean
and
Shakti?
was
He had power, like Shakti power, or you're saying power, or they're both the same in your world?
Shakti is Shakti.
Okay.
So if you have the power to get 30,000 people to come and live with you out in the middle of the wilderness, that's power.
Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. So he had Shakti. Yep. Got it. Okay. Got it.
Okay, Donald Trump has a lot of Shakti.
Yeah.
He has a lot of Shakti. He's got crazy Shakti. So that's it, right? You can have an enlightened devotee of an unenlightened God.
Oh.
This is the power of bhakti.
Wow.
It is the discipleship that gets you enlightened, not the pedigree of your guru.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense because it's the grace by God that comes down and graces you, regardless if my guru is Donald Trump, God forbid, but
You're the apprentice.
and I am his disciple. There's still hope for you. What's the guy? Michael Cohen. There's still hope for you. You can still be an enlightened being.
You can be redeemed. You can be forgiven. Come back, Michael Cohen, to the cult of Trump.
Exactly. This is your discipleship. You may be enlightened through your worship of Donald Trump. So, okay, I get it, right? Because it's really the process of divine grace hitting you, saying, this guy's perhaps I actually like Osho, but let's say that he's a fraud. So he's a fraud. but still, your devotion and love is the thing that, in your desire to want to be one with Shiva, love it, boom, and you're enlightened. Yeah. Is there hope for Michael Cohen?
Again, when you're talking about like and dislike, the medicine isn't always sweet.
Yeah, okay.
Like, what we like and what we need are often two different things. You might like purple. You might even like how you feel if you take the purple pill, but it wasn't necessarily the medicine you needed.
Okay.
Because the understanding is, number one, whatever derangement you have, whatever is holding you in your current state of unenlightenment, whatever's gluing your ego structure together, whatever maintains that and reinforces it is going to feel like it's supporting you. It's going to feel, you're going to like it. Because you are the way you are, because you like doing what you're doing. Even as much as you might get in a state of suffering saying, oh, I hate myself, or I hate my job, or I hate my life, the reason why you're in that state is a series of choices that you've made to be there. Now, I want to say with great respect, because I also consider myself a social activist, we do get born into shitty environments or in a shitty body or an abusive relationship. I don't want to delve too far into that argument. I'm not trying to talk about destiny or blame somebody's fate all on themselves. I'm just talking about a paradigm in terms of what you like and what you don't like. The understanding is that you should be doing what you need to get done, and you need to work with a pharmacist who understands your illness and gives you the proper medicine. Because if you just go out and get the medicine you like, not always, but generally speaking, you're going to choose the medicine that's going to further entrench and reinforce your current situation, rather than the medicine that is going to be a little scary and a little uncomfortable, which is usually what's necessary in order for us to level up and to dismantle our ego structure and move into a new, more enlightened paradigm. That is usually a process that feels a lot like you're dying. It's an ego death. Mm-hmm. And letting go of who you thought you were is usually a very uncomfortable and often unpleasant experience. And so we cannot rely, if our goal is self-realization or enlightenment or liberation, all those things, that requires a kind of releasing of what we like. And that goes back to that nous and that good we were talking about, attraction and aversion. Mm-hmm. You need to have mastery over both.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? So I'm trying to map that to, all right, so let's say that I just talked to someone who was telling me about Hasidism, and he was saying that he was a Christian, he was going to become like go to an abbot. And then he's like, no, I'm a Hasidic Jew. And he just went down that path. And so is that what you're talking about? So maybe, I don't know, his preference was towards Judaism because he read it and he found out that his heritage was Judaism. So he decided to go down that path. So he sort of liked it, right? He started off as like some guy that was going to go into an abbey. So he did this huge turnaround. So are you saying that, and myself, I actually had a path that I didn't necessarily pick. It picked me, and it hasn't been comfortable, and I've just been doing it anyways because I'm like, well, you picked me. Guess I better go follow it. So what does this mean about like and aversion and paths? You're making some point. I don't understand it fully.
Well, going back to, say, Osho.
Okay.
Yes, you can have bhakti, and I'm sure that many of his devotees had a great deal of bhakti for him. And we need to understand the saving power of bhakti, the grace. Really, if we want to be very ruthless about it, you just need to find a teacher to give your devotion to. Now, if you're wise, you'll choose somebody who's worthy of that devotion, who's not going to mislead you and take all your money, take your ego, if you end up broken and ill and poor after dealing with the guru, hopefully you're enlightened afterwards, because otherwise you might have just gotten
messed up.
You might have gotten cheated.
Right.
But the understanding is that if your devotion is really profound, any vehicle and all vehicles can be a passage for divine grace. The teaching is that God will choose the path of least resistance. And if your devotion is like a little baby bird pecking, give me enlightenment, give me love, give me love, give me enlightenment, let me know myself, let me know you, right? Sooner or later, mama bird's going to puke.
Right.
And you get the big download. So if Osho is the path of least resistance for you...
That is the weirdest way to describe enlightenment that I've ever heard. It's the mama bird regurgitating all her food. Okay? Yes, sorry.
The big download.
The big download from a mama bird coming down and enlightening you. Okay, pretty soon that will happen. Got it. Grace.
The thing is, if your devotion is perfect and your bhakti is perfect, that's a big if. But if it is, it will find the path of least resistance. And ultimately, as you hinted at earlier, when you said, oh, I'll become the deity, right? Sooner or later, you're going to see the deity, whatever name you want to give it, right? Not just in your guru, or not just in your beloved, or not just in the statue of your favorite deity. You start seeing your beloved everywhere, in everything. And eventually, if you really perfect your bhakti, sooner or later, it can be a really horrifically ego-shattering moment, but you might see the deity in yourself.
Mm.
right? And so when that bhakti is perfect, everything becomes a perfect path of least resistance. But until then, especially at the beginning, we need to find a worthy vehicle. We need to find a worthy vessel. We need to find a worthy hero. If you had kids, I don't know if you have kids or not,
I have
but if
two.
your kids suddenly, right, say if they put your kid thought it was really cute to put Adolf Hitler up on the bedroom wall and say, well,
Mm-hmm.
he was strong and he, got Germany's economy going again, and he was an artist, and he's a sharp dresser, and you say, well, he might not be the best role model.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's really important for in the beginning, we can find good qualities of many people, and most people are a mixture, right? Osho did have some very fine qualities. There's no doubt about it. But it's a really good idea to align yourself with a tried and true lineage, with tried and true practices, with a tried and true kula, that is, a kula means like family, a group of practitioners where you've seen, it's like if you go to and you want to take art lessons or a pharmacy school, you want to go and look at who are the graduates. Have they been successful? Are they opening pharmacies? Are they healing people? That's a good pharmacy school. But if you look at the school and maybe the teachers are great and the campus is beautiful, but none of the students are getting jobs, and in fact there's a bunch of lawsuits against them because they keep screwing up, maybe that's not the pharmacy school to go to. You want to choose the school you go to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a perfect student, you can learn from almost any teacher.
Mm.
But it really makes sense to go and find the best teacher possible. And to use a role model that is going to not alienate you from your community, your friends, and your family.
Mm. So who is your teacher then? Or what teacher did you find?
Well, I mean, I've got lots of funny stories. So I'm currently studying with a tantric guru. He's of Indian heritage.
Uh-huh.
He's currently based in Australia, but he's a secret guru. He only has, I think, 5 disciples,
Okay.
no website, no public classes, and he didn't want to take me on as a disciple. Well, there were certain signs. He hates Americans. I didn't want a bloody American. And he's not super fond of white people in
Okay.
general.
Okay.
And so he wasn't really happy that all these signs showed up that we should be guru and disciple. So he has asked me not to say his name out loud in public.
Got it.
Because like a true tantric, in the traditional sense of it, according to the scriptures, he keeps the practice very secret.
Okay. Got
And
it.
the practices are not to be discussed.
Okay.
So that could sound like a cop-out.
No, I get it. No, but so has that been your teacher throughout the whole time, or you've had several teachers throughout
I've
your
had
whole...
several teachers. So that's my current guru.
Yeah.
I've also studied with an amazing Jyotishi named Betty Tim and learned about Hindu astrology. I've had several sacred art teachers that I've worked with over the years. Dinesh Shrestha Charan, who's from Kathmandu, it's Nepalese. I've worked with Mahavir Swami a little bit out in Bikaner in Rajasthan. I studied with Mavis Juwant and Peter Veltevred of the Harish Johari lineage.
Great.
And then I've worked with a lot of other people a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Andy Weber, who's German originally, now lives in Britain, and he spent 12 years studying in Dharmasala. So he's a Tibetan painter. And I picked up a lot from a lot of different sources. My first Dharma teacher that I got my name from was called Dharmanidhi Saraswati when I took initiation. He's now taken different initiations or something else and changed his name again. And he's teaching a completely different tradition. It's not even a Hindu yoga anymore. It's not what he's teaching public.
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't mind mentioning his name, but you wouldn't find him under that name anymore.
Yeah.
He became Dharma Bodhi and then Kubjol Martins or something.
Right. Wow. Interesting. So you've actually had several different teachers. Would you describe all of them as your guru?
So there are different levels of gurus. There are Adi gurus and there are Diksha gurus, there are Upagurus, there are Shesha gurus. So somebody who sits beside you, like a fellow student who knows a little bit more, and they're like, oh, put your left foot forward, watch out. That's an Upaguru, which means the guru that sits beside you. It's like a fellow student is a little bit further ahead on the path.
Right.
Now, a Diksha Guru is somebody who gives you a mantra and a name. They give you initiation. There's supposed to be an energetic transfer of power.
Okay. Okay.
That's a guru that's giving you mantras, and there's usually a vow involved in that. Okay. So I've only had 2 Diksha gurus. Okay, Dharmanidhi Saraswati, and then my current guru, right? And they've given me mantras and empowerment and gave me names and things like that. There's also what could be called a Sadguru. Sad is from Sat, meaning truth. So that is somebody that shows you the truth of reality. That has to be an enlightened being, right? So are either one of my gurus Sadgurus? Like, they might be considered Diksha gurus. So it starts getting sticky. And see, in the West, the problem is we think as soon as somebody's called a guru that they have the capacity to give us the entire practice. Somebody like Osho was never acknowledged to be a Sadguru. And although he had great powers, he didn't die auspiciously. So if you ever really want to boil things down, it's not always true, but generally speaking, the one final act that a fully realized being will do is that they'll do something instructive as a way of saying goodbye. It's like the final lesson. It's the one thing that's really almost impossible to fake, is how you die. So usually highly enlightened beings will have an auspicious death or an instructive death in some way. So what we could say with somebody like Osho is he had a lot of knowledge. He obviously had a lot of power. He was a brilliant human being, right? And some people had very auspicious experiences from him. But we could not call him a Jagat Guru. We could not call him a Sadguru. He did not die auspiciously. And many, many, many of his students did not receive his protection. They suffered under his tutelage, right? So when you're given Diksha, when you're given initiation by the Guru, the implication is when there's a vow, you've joined the Guru's family. That's literally why you get a new name. And as a member of their family, just like you have a father, your father should protect you, feed you, take care of your health, help you get into college, help you get started in life. The whole implication is that you're in a new family. You've left all of your karmas of your birth behind, and now you have the karmas of an enlightened teacher from an enlightened family of teachers.
Oh, I didn't realize.
That's why the new name.
I did not realize. So
and that's why you should not just go to India and get a mantra from somebody in India and think, oh, I'm good, I got a mantra, because that guru did not take a vow. It's like
protect
if you really,
you.
what is that song for that lyric? If you really want it, you got to put a ring on it.
Yeah.
If you really care about it. What's that lyric?
Put on a ring on it.
How does it go? Do you know?
No, I don't, but I think I know. It's like a pop song.
So, if you're dating somebody, you can say, oh, I love you, or oh, I care for you, or I'll be there for you, or I'll stay with you forever. And you say, okay, well, let's get married. And like, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, so there's like one who teaches you, one who sits next to you and is a little bit ahead of you. Then there's one that you're married to, like it's like part of your family. And then you said there are 2 other types. Is that right?
There's a whole bunch of others. We don't need to go into details. The point I wanted to get across is that if the guru isn't willing to put a ring on it, then they're not giving you their protection. They're not actually saying, my teachings, I'm backing it up with my own personal guarantee that this is going to work for you, or I'm going to go and retrieve your soul from the bardos.
Oh.
I'm going to go pull you out of jail.
What?
I'm going to heal you if those practices go wrong. That's what a guru who takes a vow with you is signing up to do. And that's why most of these big charismatic teachers, they'll give out practices, they'll give out magic treats, but they don't take the vow to protect you. It's very consistent. And that's the difference between a true guru, in my opinion. We don't even need to put Adi, Sad, Diksha. If they're not willing to take a vow to stand by you and pull your ass out of the fire when you do their practices that they gave you, then they're not really backing those practices up.
Wow. There's like the money back guarantee. that's the money back guarantee. Okay.
So it's very common to find somebody who'll teach you. And you can even find people who give you mantras, but it's very rare. And I guarantee you talk to an Indian guru, right, who knows what they're doing. And they say, oh, I love you. God loves you. I teach you. They do the head wobble. I give you the mantra. And then you say, oh, will you take a vow to protect me?
Wow. I see. Oh, so when you ask someone to be your teacher, are you asking them, is that different than asking someone to be your guru? Is there like some devotional thing? I see. So there's some thing that you specifically have to ask that person to be like, will you protect me and when I go to the bardo? But they have to be able to prove that they can protect you, right? Because otherwise, if they make that vow, well, how does one even
Well, the
know?
nice thing is, if you're a perfect disciple, there's a big if, you're putting them on the hook. Their soul is now hooked, and you saying, you're going to come and handle me through multiple lifetimes. You're going to take care of these problems. I've got your soul on hook. There's actually tremendous power the disciple has over the guru.
Wow, I had no idea. So that when you form that type of relationship, they're on the hook. But how about if they don't have the goods? I mean, not everyone has the goods, right? There are tons of teachers out there. Okay, so that's what you're saying. You have to, if you're going to get married, you better make sure that the person has the goods. All right, I just learned
It's
something.
the same thing advice that you'd give one of your friends.
Yeah, no,
They're like, oh, I went to India. I met this really cool person. They're so good looking. They've got lots of money. They're so strong. Oh, the sex was great. And you're like, what's their name? And like, oh, his name is Osho Jaga. I forget what his name was. He had all these names that he made up.
Rajesh.
Right?
Rajesh something.
Rajesh, the king of kings. Isha, the lord of Rajas, the lord of kings. Right? It's a name for God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you say, well, what's the legal name? And you're like, I don't know the legal name. Do you know his legal name?
No. Don't know. Interesting. Isn't it funny? Yeah, so it's like almost like they become like a non-person. But then they forgo, I guess, but no one even gave him the name Osho. Even that's a fake name because the name before was Rajesh. Anyways, we can go down the Osho hole for probably another 5 hours. What?
Well, I just like to use that example. Like, people will go into India and they'll see a statue of a deity and they'll think, oh, it's so beautiful. And then they bring it home. And I say, oh, if you went to India and you just saw somebody beautiful standing on a corner and you're like, hey, I'm going to take you home with me. You're good looking. I mean, does that even make sense? Do you know where they've been? Are you using protection? Do you know their name? Do you know who their last boyfriend was? And you're just paying $10 and taking and put them on the plane with you and taking them home, and then now they're your roommate at home? Is that smart?
Well, yeah.
You should at least know their name. I don't recommend bringing the statue of any deity home unless you at least know their real name. And I think that's true of a guru. Treat a guru at least as responsibly as you would. Google them.
Yeah.
Just if you're dating somebody, I mean, we're talking about not just penetrating your body, we're talking about penetrating your soul.
Wow.
Bija mantra, bija literally means seed. They're planting a seed in your soul.
Wow.
So if you would Google a boyfriend, see if they've got a criminal record, why don't you do that for a guru?
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
amazed how many people have studied with spiritual teachers, and I'm like, whoa, have you read up on this guy? And they've never no, I just have faith. That answer is correct only if you're a perfect student and your devotion is perfect and your practice is perfect.
Right.
But if your practice is perfect 3 days of the week, and then you want to go out and go to the club and have some drinks and get laid and, have some barbecue, right? And you're doing whatever you want to do the other 4 days of the week,
right?
Maybe you should probably not congratulate yourself you're a perfect student and all that matters is your faith and devotion. Maybe you should use Google and do your homework.
I see. So there's like a dangerous dance both directions. One is that you actually have to do the research to make sure that you have the real deal, because if you were asking someone to be your guru and drag you out of the bardo, then you better make sure that they know how to do that. Otherwise, you're vowing getting married to someone and being part of their family, and you don't know what you're going to get. I get it.
Or you're dating somebody who's refusing to marry you, and you're giving them everything. You're giving it all up for them, and they ain't giving you nothing back.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Well, I just learned so much about coloring and about gurus. What did we cover? Coloring, gurus, bhakti. We've gone through the world in this very short period of time. we learned about poetry, like we learned about yoga, like we learned about your life. I love it. All right, so any
So as
final
we
words?
end this, can I say one last thing I want to end it with? In case I've
Absolutely.
pissed off anybody out there listening?
Yes.
If you worship an unenlightened God, but you have an experience of enlightenment, if you are devoted to an unenlightened guru, but you have an amazing life-changing experience, it doesn't matter if they were a fraud. This is where I see these exposés like this guy's like, I pretended to be a fake guru and people have these experiences. Oh, look at what suckers they are. This is the power of bhakti. This is the beauty of divinity. It will find the path of least resistance, even through an imperfect vessel. So if your love and devotion is pure enough and deep enough, you don't have to be worried whether your guru was a fraud or not. Your experience was still real.
Right. You can't question.
Don't suddenly believe that your
I guess
experience is
I can
not
see
real
that
just because
people
they turned out to be a jerk.
Yeah, so people will be like, "Oh, well, I don't think, look what they discovered about Osho. None of those things really were true for me." Yeah? It's a really, really good point. I've had experiences, like huge awakening experiences from various people who weren't necessarily even good people. And they were still, and then it made me question whether that thing was real. It's still real.
What it should question is not whether the experience was real. Because, like, say you have a mind-blowing love with somebody that you get married to, and then you find out 3 years later that they were a jerk, and you get a divorce. That doesn't mean that the mind-blowing love that you had was unreal. So, in this case, what I would say is that you should not be questioning whether your experience was real or not. What you should be questioning is your karma that brought you an imperfect teacher. What was it about my studentship? Did I do enough research? Was I purified enough? Why was this the path that those teachings reached me?
Got it. Love it. This is really fascinating.
How can I improve my practice?
Yeah, it's fascinating and personally relevant. I don't know how we got there, aside from I've been wondering about this question, and you must have known it somehow, and you went with the flow, and it came out. So, thank you, Divine, for going down this path regardless. I love it. So, August 3rd, 7 to 9 o'clock. Also on Saturday, you're coming to Seattle. We'll be able to, I'm going to be in Oregon, so I will not see you, but Ekabhumi, and please hold up your book again. Can you hold up your coloring book again? Can you hold up your... Yes.
I just want to say thank you so much. It's so auspicious that we scheduled this talk on this very auspicious day, Guru Purnima in 2018.
What?
And it's the full moon, and here we see the full moon next to Sri Krishna, who's the great guru of the hero Arjuna. And tonight is this very auspicious and important full moon, and there's also going to be an eclipse, but it's a very, very important and auspicious day for a lot of reasons. And to be able to come and talk to you about bhakti and the dharma and about wisdom, I mean, it was just, we didn't plan this so very far in advance. It all just came together. I feel so honored to be here and to speak on these topics today. It's so auspicious.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.